Welcome to Namibia Media Holdings' second update on the coronavirus impact in our country. With me, senior journalist Denver Kirsten. Good morning, Denver.
Morning, Donnie, and good morning to our viewers. I hope you managed to get some rest last night, Donnie.
I have to tell you, I had to take a sleeping pill. But Denver, what is new in terms of local happenings?
As far as local happenings are concerned, yesterday we reported, as per the information of the Ministry of Health and Social Services, that the two confirmed cases relate to a Spanish couple. What we've seen in the meantime, a statement by the Spanish embassy in Namibia, that these people had been traveling from Madrid in Spain, but they're in fact from Romania. So I think it's important for us to share factually correct information as it unfolds. We haven't seen anything official from government's perspective as far as that's concerned, but should that surface, we'll definitely share it as it comes. Unfortunately,
a bit of criticism from the public in that regard about officials not getting their facts right. Also, we know a helpline has been launched. The number is 0800 100 100. But we are receiving reports from people that the line is completely overloaded. You get the message that the number is not available. And hopefully people are working on that as well.
Absolutely. What we do know is it's a toll-free helpline. So one can imagine that because people are concerned, people are worried that the calls are streaming into that number. But we also know that the person responsible for the number has given the indication that they're prioritizing it.
And then also yesterday already, parents were very worried. We can tell you, as we are speaking now, the Ministry of Education, their top officials, is having a meeting. And we expect later today, if not a press conference, that there at least will be a public announcement in terms of whether schools will close or not. The international situation at the moment, we started off with that, yes, and since yesterday, Denver, it has changed again, obviously.
Yeah, this is an unfolding, a developing picture, Donnie. As far as that picture is concerned, we do know that the number of infected people now stands at 142,649, up from yesterday's 142,320 cases. Relating to the deaths, yesterday it stood at 5,388, and it's up with 5. It's now on 5,393, Donnie. The countries affected yesterday, we reported, were 129. The latest figure is 135 countries.
Yeah, so they have added 6 countries, and we can tell you on that is the WHO interactive map at the moment, and Namibia is still not officially listed, so we suppose it's just the way communication goes from Namibia to the WHO, so that would actually make the countries 1+. Now, all of us know internationally the impact of COVID-19 on economies, stock markets has been huge. After the break, we show you an interview with 2 economists. They are from Cyrus Capital, Roland Brown and Romain Mostert, and Jo-Marie Duddy spoke to them.
Joining us in the studio to talk about the impact of the coronavirus on the economy is Romain Mostert and Roland Brown, both from Cyrus Capital. Gentlemen, good morning and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for having us.
Let's cut right to the chase. Even before the coronavirus in Namibia, obviously the global developments will have some impact on the Namibian economy. What are your impressions on that?
So I think the starting point is that even if the virus doesn't actually come here, the global disruption that we see is sufficient to cause a material slowdown in the Namibian economy. I think our economy is already quite vulnerable. We have very little sort of dry powder, if you will, in the form of fiscal or monetary space. And so there's not a lot of scope for stimulus. The main contagion routes that we see into the Namibian economy for the economic impact is through tourism and travel, and also transport logistics in general. So I think from that perspective, we can expect there to be quite a substantial impact on our economy over the next few months in terms of the sort of first round effects.
Now we have 2 confirmed cases in the country. Rumay, talking about the immediate impact with the fact that the coronavirus is now in Namibia. We saw yesterday in Namibia, for instance, cancelling flights to Frankfurt. What would be the impact on an SOE like in Namibia?
Yeah, I think it's, every business sits with fixed operating costs that it needs to sort of manage month to month. And with these businesses, I think with SOE specifically, we sit on much bigger operational costs than we would usually sit with in a private company. Much bigger salaries and so on. So a decrease in revenue will have a significant impact in profits. And ultimately, if those companies' profitability falls, and in those cases we're already running losses, I think you can actually expect a bigger demand from government, which is their shareholder, to support them. And I think we were discussing just before, and last year, for example, Air Namibia needed about 1.8 billion. This year will probably be a 3 billion demand on government. And on government, that's already sitting tight on cash flows and short of cash in general.
And that's just one of the state-owned enterprises that I think will be impacted by it. So Air Namibia is the obvious one and likely the single biggest ticket. But that then transmits through into the airports company, for example. Fewer passengers landing here means less revenue for the airports company. And that can also become an issue for the shareholders. Then similarly, fewer passengers landing here becomes a problem for the tourism industry. Namibia Wildlife Resorts is one of those entities. And I think a lot of how the tourism industry, the public and the private companies handle this depends on how well prepared they are and how much of a war chest they have. At the moment, I think there's quite substantial risk to some of the smaller guys, and I think there's quite substantial risk to the less prepared players in that industry. But I think the point that Ramey makes is critical, that I think the biggest risk that we see in the economic impact is actually to our government financial position. So many of the entities that are highly exposed to this, both in the travel side but also on the logistics side, your Namport, Transnamib, etc., are state companies, and the state has very, very little wiggle room. After a number of years of large fiscal deficits, with major sort of constraints on cash, without huge amounts of demand for government debt, the state is really the place. Even without the virus, without us having an outbreak here, the state, I think, is very fragile.
Obviously, the state not really having a buffer. Debt is massive as it is. What would be its options? Do you think that maybe it will now resort to the long talked about tax increases, etc.? What does the minister have available?
I think, just before you get to what he's got available, monetary policy will probably not necessarily be the means to attack this problem and to stimulate the economy. It will need to be fiscally driven. There you start asking the questions, okay, so do we have borrowing capacity? What we're seeing actually on Friday is a lot of foreigners selling government debt in South Africa. So sort of a risk-off mood has taken foreign investors away from emerging market debt. So it will make it difficult for now to raise debt.
And expensive.
And expensive. So interest rates have also spiked significantly. But I think what Namibia does actually have is we've built up a bit of a foreign reserve to pay back our foreign debt in 2021. I think we've been allocating quarterly flows of about 400 million to those reserves, and I think that's maybe an immediate place to go to just access cash for government. But it just kicks the can in the sense that come 2021 we need to have alternative plans in place to be able to repay our debt and to manage our fiscal situation.
Yeah. The other thing is it's not just government that has quite a lot of debt. Our private sector and private households are also quite highly indebted. So if we do have major business interruptions, which seems ever more likely, especially now that there have been these couple of cases here, that business interruption can put a lot of pressure on these leveraged businesses and of course leveraged households as well. If you are not receiving your normal income or bonuses or whatever it happens to be because you can't appear at work, then chances are that there's quite a big risk to your income on that side. And I think that one of the biggest risks would be something like increasing taxes. I think increasing taxes in an environment where there's this enormous business disruption risk will just cause a huge number more problems than it solves. In fact, we would, I think, expect to see more the opposite. This is quite an extreme situation, and one needs quite an extreme stimulus response. Increasing taxes is a fiscal withdrawal. So I think one needs to be very, very careful in terms of those types of approaches to it. On the monetary policy side of things, because they're going to be these disruptions, I think that one needs to be aware of the fact that further interest rate cuts are likely. They may not help an enormous amount, but they may provide that little bit of breathing room if these highly leveraged businesses do experience disruption, and same with regards to households. So I think we expect to see the SARB cut interest rates this week. The base expectation was 25 basis points, but we think it's quite possible that they might do quite a bit more than that.
People are obviously scared at the moment. What would your message be to the private sector?
Keep calm and carry on. I don't think that there's. I don't think that we have a crisis situation in the country or anything close to it. I think that the big risk at the moment is this global slowdown. But I think that at the same time, the fundamental underpinning issue is actually not quite that serious. It's in many ways the way that we're responding to try to slow the spread so that it buys us additional time and so on. So one way or another, we will come through it. It'll be a year to 2 years of, I think, a challenging backdrop. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a change in the global response to the virus quite soon. Already what we see is Britain seems to be taking a different approach. They are looking more towards trying to establish herd immunity, trying to ensure that the virus doesn't spread amongst vulnerable people, which is basically older people. They're not that worried about it spreading amongst younger people who are much less vulnerable. And if a sufficiently large number of young people get it and recover from it, as young people seem to do, then that builds this herd immunity. It wouldn't surprise me if we start to see other countries moving in that direction. Once we've got over the initial kind of shock and the overwhelming of many of the health systems, I think that there's quite a good chance that we'll start to see a more targeted intervention. Now, if you have that targeted intervention that sort of quarantines older, more at-risk people, your economy can keep functioning. So I think that that's likely to be what happens. But at the moment, it's just very uncertain how exactly it's going to play out. But I don't think that there's need for enormous concern, but I think caution is advisable.
Any closing thoughts from you, Remy?
I just think the uncertainty is what makes it difficult at the moment. If you think basically the global economy is not just slowing down, it's coming to a stop. A lot of things are stopping, and that's going to make it difficult. We don't know what the extent of things are, and I think for now it's just better to try and carry on as normal as possible, but with the necessary caution. So don't be the reason for a further halt on the system. Try and function as close to possible as to your normal means.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Denver, a lot of insight there as far as economics goes, so we might see interest rates being cut quite soon, but pressure on revenue, profits, operational expenditure, and the big thing which would make it worse is interruption in normal businesses.
Absolutely, and I heard Roland Brown say that government agencies will feel the impact the most, because government doesn't really have much leeway at the present moment as it is, even during the pre-corona era. But I think the important message, and we also emphasized that yesterday, Brown also says that we're not yet in a crisis situation, despite the global picture unfolding. As long as we can curb the spread of the virus and contain it, and business can continue as normally as possible, we should be okay. So we need to reiterate that. Let's try our best not to panic.
And obviously also important, we are still in summer, winter is still headed, so it's important to also manage this properly before we get to the normal flu period. Now Denver, in terms of events, a lot of announcements yesterday. MTC has announced that the Namibia Music Awards nomination event, at which they expected some 600 artists, that has been postponed until further notice. Obviously the Independence, the big music concert, that has been postponed as well. We are now going to look at sport. I've been since told that the Sanlam Marathon in Swakopmund, which would have taken place next weekend, has also been scheduled. We spoke to Dr. Rudy van Vieren of Cricket Namibia about the impact internationally and locally on sport.
Please stay tuned.
With us is Dr. Rudy van Vieren. Now, he's president of Cricket Namibia at the moment. He's also a former national player for Namibia in 2 sports codes. Good morning, Rudy.
Morning, Donnie. Thank you for having me.
We're going to have a quick look at the impact on sports in terms of COVID-19 now globally and internationally, Rudy. It's been chaos basically, and we're showing you quickly on screen what we know about the impact as far as sport is concerned, where Namibia is involved. Now we know already that Rugby Africa's under-20 tournament scheduled for Kenya has been postponed. And in other news, cricket, we're coming back to the Netherlands tour from the 25th of March. That has been cancelled completely. In boxing, our fighter Zakaria Lucas, he was supposed to fight in New York in Madison Square Garden. That has been postponed as well. And in terms of cycling, a lot of Namibians always travel to Cape Town for the Epic. That has been cancelled as well. And in terms of football, the Brave Warriors would have had a friendly preparation match for Chan in Swakopmund. That has been cancelled as well. And in terms of rugby, the NRU leagues are supposed to start on April 4, so they will make a decision at their AGM scheduled for the 28th of March in terms whether they will continue with that sport. Now, Rudy, even yesterday the news that Super Rugby has been suspended until further notice for a lot of rugby lovers. That's very bad news. In terms of school sports, just the Momentum Schools Rugby Leagues, that's supposed to start a bit later in April. So the organizers' message to us is that hopefully they will be able to go ahead. Next weekend would have been the Henny de Waal Sports Festival at Windhoek Technical High School. They still to make a decision. Next weekend as well, the Swakopmund Sanlam Marathon. And that's basically also may not take place. As far as cricket is concerned, the message that the Netherlands won't be coming for 2 very important preparatory test matches is bad for cricket.
Yeah, it's extremely bad. We, as you know, Cricket Namibia, our senior men's team, will be going to the World Cup, the T20 World Cup, later this year. If that is still going to happen, we will have to wait and see. But for us in preparation, this was important. So in terms of that, it's a big setback, but also in terms of revenue for Cricket Namibia. You know, our CEO just sold some of the rights, the TV rights, to an Indian company. So that's not coming our way anymore. And obviously the matches, we did a lot of work to attract families and to get people to the matches. Very much looking forward to that. That's also, that revenue is lost for Cricket Namibia.
And we are supposed to travel to Nepal later as well, and that is still unclear whether that's going to go ahead.
Yes, we were scheduled to play, or we're still scheduled to play Scotland and Nepal here in Namibia in April. But seeing that Nepal is a high-risk country, we will have to wait and see what happens with that tournament. That's a ICC tournament, a one-day international tournament. So we'll need to see what happens with that.
What is the situation in terms of local cricket, club cricket in Namibia?
For now, we have stopped our high-performance programs, so our elite squad and our age group HB programs have been stopped. Yesterday, we still played club cricket in Namibia, and this week we'll have to consider what we do with the fixtures going ahead, if we stop that or not. But I mean, luckily, cricket is not a contact sport, so I think we can safely play cricket.
Now, if you do not know, Rudy is also a medical practitioner, a GP, and yesterday morning I watched a short bit of Super Rugby, and Naas and Brighton were, on two different poles about the issue, because Brighton felt matches within New Zealand could be moved elsewhere. That was Naas, and Brighton, said no, we must put no one at risk, etc., etc. So those are the two opinions. What is your opinion from the sports side, and your opinion from the side as someone being a medical doctor as well?
Well, I think we are, in a certain sense, we are lucky, because we have high temperatures. We have low population density, and the virus is quite a sensitive virus when it comes to temperatures and that kind of thing. So those things count in our favor. Look, if you get it, you get it. It's like I said. I mean, it's like a flu. What worries me a little bit from a medical perspective is our ICU capacity in this country. But I'm positive that it will not impact us that badly from a medical perspective. From a sports perspective, I think we don't really understand. I mean, if you look at a country like New Zealand, they are very, very cautious. They are very proactive with this kind of thing, and to move those games will put them at a disadvantage. It's not a home game anymore if you don't play in New Zealand. So I'm sort of on the side of, well, the whole world is coming to a standstill. Let's stand still now for a while and ride this out and go through it, and then continue like we've done before.
Very shortly, the last question. In terms of practicing, and we know, we've seen that parents, especially with children at school, they're very worried. Should practices even go ahead with, in terms of contact sports, for example, there's very close contact between players during a training session. So what is your view on that? Yeah,
I think contact sport is a different ball game. No pun intended. But that is where, I mean, sweat and close bodily contact, and in a scrum or something like that, I mean, people are in very close contact. So that is something I would say you need to be careful of. In terms of something like golf, where you walk and there's no contact, I think that's safe. Cricket is quite safe to play at the moment. You're not in close contact. You're not. It's not a contact sport. So I think you must just think logically about this.
Rudy, thank you very much for sharing your expertise, and we really hope that the sun will rise for our cricket this year still, especially with the World Cup coming.
Yeah, thank you, Danny.
Very interesting advice from Dr. Rudy van Vuren there, Denver. And he said the world is standing still, so let's stand still with them. And I'm a big sport lover myself, and you feel so frustrated because you won't be able to watch your favorite sport, but we all have to make sacrifices, unfortunately, in a situation like this.
Absolutely, but as long, very importantly, as you stay away from a scrum, Dani.
Yes, okay. Bly weg uit die skramme uit. We yesterday shared our WhatsApp number and we asked people, especially from overseas, if you're studying, to share us some clips. Now we received this one from students in China. We don't know exactly when it was taken, but they are also sharing very good and positive messages.
Maybe it's a good message to share with our viewers. If you do share something with us, just provide a bit of context. When was the video shot and where exactly, and a bit of detail would go a long way. But thank you very much for being interactive.
Let's have a look.
Okay, so my name is Feni Taleko and I'm from Namibia, and currently I'm enrolled as a master's student in at the School of Government for Masters in Public Policy, and ever since this outbreak, the situation hasn't been easy. It has been quite difficult, especially when we had to have certain of our movements restricted, like we can't go to the supermarket as much as we want anymore. But we still understand that it's all the restrictions that have been put in place were for our own benefit, and that the Chinese government authorities and our school authorities are really trying to get the situation under control. My message to everybody in Wuhan and to all the affected areas, I just want to tell them that they should not feel alone. We are together in this. We are all affected in one way or another, so they shouldn't give up hope. We are managing, and it's actually fun. It's something that's interesting. It's new to me. I've never done online learning before, so I'm getting the hang of it, and I'm just happy that the university put these measures in place so that my studies are not disrupted, and then like at the end of the day we can graduate on time and then go back to our respective countries and plow this knowledge that we have learned.
Ni hao China, my name is Sedik Chombo. I'm from Namibia, currently in China, doing my master's in public policy. Well, my stay in China at the moment, indeed, I would say it is magnificent. I'm enjoying it here, loving their culture. They have a very good culture. I would say, in my own words, I'll say Chinese people are people with a coconut culture, very welcoming and very, with a smile with a smile on their face. So most of them have been like family to me. They're very welcoming. So with that, I would love to say that with this epidemic, or the outbreak of the coronavirus, I would love to say that China is not alone in this. Of course, with their overwhelming support from the world that I've been seeing on social media, one can also say that China is not alone. And if I may have a message to the colleagues in Wuhan, to my fellow students in Wuhan, you are not alone. We are here for you, and feel strong and be there. We will be there for you. So my last thing is, the message out there is, Wuhan, hang in there. The world is here with you, and this thing is going to come to an end.
Hello everyone, I'm Rosalia Tapopi from Namibia. I'm currently enrolled for Masters of Public Policy at Peking University. Since the outbreak of the coronavirus, the university team is really at work. More especially the international student department. They are really making sure that we are safe. They are even providing us with masks. They've provided us with a skipping rope to make sure that our fitness is also taken care of. For the Wuhan people and the Chinese nation at large, I just want to tell you that you are not fighting alone. We are right behind your back. And I'm sure and I'm certain that very soon China is going to win this battle, because I know the pandemic is not only for Chinese people, it's for everyone all over the world. So if we fight together, I'm sure we are going to win this battle very soon, and China will be the strong China that we always know. And for the last but not least, for those ones that have lost their loved one through this pandemic, I wish you comfort, and we pray that you find comfort in the Lord. I thank you.
中国加油
Wuhan, Jiayou.
Chungwa, Jiayou. Wuhan, Jiayou.
Chungwa, Jiayou. Wuhan, Jiayou.
Chungwa, Jiayou. Wuhan, Jiayou. China, Namibia, Otakondo, Pame, Nanye.
Denver, like I said, we're not sure of the origin. We did receive it, and very positive messages still, even though this recording might be a bit older. And I think it's important as well. We live in a world where a country like China is also maybe unfairly criticized, etc. And these messages are important as well.
I agree with you, Donnie. What I gathered from there is that one needs to remember that you're not alone. There are people hard at work. There are governments who are taking it very seriously. And that's also why we created this platform at Namibia Media Holdings, to make sure we share positive information, but also factually accurate information as it unfolds.
We are quickly displaying again our WhatsApp line you can use. That is not also obviously for people outside our borders elsewhere in the world. You can send us information or questions. It's 0811 7010. 0811 7010. Denver, thank you very much for joining me today, and we hope to be back with you at 1 o'clock today for another update.
Thank you, Donnie, and thank you to our viewers. Share this broadcast and please interact with us and stay safe.